Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and many of you know from last week I did a video on rear drag fishing reels, and we were able to take a generic reel and undo it, show you how they worked, and put it back together. And that led me to thinking that I had another one of them around. I have a Cardinal 957, and the Abu Garcia Cardinal, 959. That's how bad this one is. This one's a candidate for Hall of Shame. There's nothing, I don't think, that's right with this reel. So I call these things tuition reels, and I like to take them apart. I like to see what went wrong with them. So it's clear just from the start that this reel has not been cared for. We've got paint loss all over the reel. We have a chip on the reel seat, which means it was dropped at some point. Again, lots of paint loss. This was in a $5 or less bin at a local flea market. We have a rotor here that's not screwed down properly, so even if this was working well, the line would not line up well on the spool because of the rock and roll. We have a broken handle screw. We have a anti-reverse that doesn't work. Oh, maybe it does. No, it doesn't. So, and we have a very difficult turning reel. So there's multiple issues with this. They all come down to, have you been able to properly maintain a reel, or have you just abused it? And this one I would call abuse. There's no way to get this off. The button that removes the spool, you can't press it in. So for chuckles, let's take the gear side plate off and see what else is going on. I don't expect in any way, shape, or form that this will ever be repairable, but let's just see. So broken side screw, that usually indicates that it was dropped as well. There's plastic. Looking inside here, this is probably one of the reasons why it's so difficult to turn. It looks like this is either seized to the side plate. No, it's turning. There's a bushing in here. Probably hasn't been lubed. As a result, there's just a bunch of crud in there. And let's just go ahead and do this. Take it apart, see what it is. This is an autopsy as opposed to a repair. That's probably the best way that I can put that at the moment. We're going to see if we can't remove the drag tensioner. So this one is a little bit of a different setup than the one I showed you the other day. All in all, though, it's pretty much the same. There's a cup. There should be a spring. Well, should be a spring. Looks like maybe there is. It looks like it might be broken as well. Yeah, we have a small spring in here. That puts some pressure on the cap. But this looks like it's been broken. If not, it's not a very durable spring anyway. And then we can remove the side plate. So let's go ahead and do that. There's just 3 side plate screws here. We have a non-functioning bail, by the way. I noticed that when I picked it up off the table. I think this was $3. I don't know. I don't think there's any parts to even salvage in here, quite honestly. But again, I like to learn from these, find out why they fail. And I like to point out to folks, simple maintenance procedures. This one could have been as easy as washing down your reel at the end of the trip and just a drop or 2 of oil inside the side case without even taking the side case off. I kind of draw the analogy or the thing. If you see a rusted old car or truck in a field somewhere, you often wonder how it got there and how it got that way. That's why I buy these old reels, just because I wonder how it got there or got that way. Let's see if we can get this. This is tight. Yeah. I'm going to use a razor knife to separate the case. This case is a case that ends below the rotor, so it can just be pried off simply. I'm thinking that we've got maybe a frozen bushing or something else that's not very good. Just using a series of wedges now, using a screwdriver to try and get that out. Okay, so yeah, we've got a bushing in there, and there's a lot of corrosion and such in here. That's clearly been a problem there. I noticed earlier this handle seems to be frozen to the main gear, and well, we can turn it at least. Frozen to the main gear. You can see it's absolutely dry. There's rust. There's no indication that there's any kind of lubrication on this thing at all. Let's go ahead and pull that. We'll come up top here and do that. So this one, you saw the one the other time on the how the spool shaft is held, and this has a slightly different clip. It is also a spring, so you want to just make sure that you keep your finger and tension on that as you pull that off. This is a little different clip. You might remember the other one had a C-clip. This one is just a tension clip. And what happens with that is, let's go ahead and pull this out. There is an indentation here, so that clip rides in that indentation. It's a little bit more narrow than at the other points. And that's when you come back in, you've got to line that up accordingly. There you go, you can see how it does that. And I like to take these clips and put them right back onto the spool shafts, only because it's, you know where it is, you don't have to go searching for it, and it'll make a difference. So this one's welded on here. It's a good thing there's no drags or anything up top here, so if we really wanted to figure out how to make this thing work again, we probably could. Here's that rocking rotor again, and you can see that the whole issue here has been that this nut has become way too loose. So that causes a couple of different things. It causes a problem with the line spooling. If you have a rock, it tends to bulk up on top or bottom. It doesn't wind evenly on that. And also, I have a non-functioning bail. And pretty much not functioning everything at the moment, but not much you can do there. Let's take this rotor off just to show you. And obviously, if I can turn this nut with my fingers, it's not down, it's not proper. I'll take that off, see what we got in here. We got more indication that this thing has never been lubed properly. Again, this appears to be a bushing. This has got a C-clamp in it. If you have a little pliers, this is probably the best thing. Sometimes you can get them out without moving it. There's two holes. There's a little clamp pliers that they make. It makes that possible. I'm not getting any luck with that. But if you wanted to remove that, you have to remove the two. One in each side, pull it in, and pulling it in will make it work for you. I've seen a couple of variations on how to do this without the C-clamp pliers, but for the most part, I'm not even going to wrestle with that. We've got a handle that's frozen inside the main gear here. We've got a plastic. This is kind of interesting. It's probably why it's not turning either. Got a plastic crosswind gear here, and we have the crosswind block. Let's see if we can't pull that back. And we've got a frozen anti-reverse as well. So this is a candidate for the wall of shame. There's nothing good about this reel whatsoever in terms of being able to make this thing functional. There's too many frozen parts. It all comes back to maintenance, and unfortunately this has been so poorly maintained. Here's your crosswind block, plastic. We had talked about that earlier on the other video, you know, that these are relatively inexpensive reels, and one of the problems with it being an inexpensive reel is you don't get the parts for it, and they're not worth maintaining. So we have a plastic crosswind block here, and a plastic, nope, that's metal. Just a Well, maybe they're both metal. They are metal, okay. And we're not going to be able to get the main gear out because of that. We can see as well on the drag stack that, that we've got all salt buildup there. And there's nothing I can say that's positive about this, so I think I learned early on in life, if you can't say anything positive, don't say anything at all. But this is the problem that you have when you don't maintain a reel. So what do? Right? Even on the small or the inexpensive reels, why give them up to saying as soon as they fail, I'm going to go buy another one? That doesn't make any sense. Annual maintenance, right? Spray this down. I've got a lot of questions that come in about the properly maintaining a reel. So one of the things I always suggest is after you're done fishing for the day, hose the reel down or dunk it in fresh water, get the contaminants off of it that have collected. Spray it down with a drying agent like a WD-40, even a light coat of spray oil would be fine, a lubricating oil and so on, doesn't really matter what it is. But that's the number one issue. It'll keep all of the corrosion from happening. This one obviously was a saltwater reel because of the buildup of salt here on the butt of the reel and so on. And then from a maintenance standpoint, it's once or twice a year is all you need to do. It's not a lot, maintain the outside. But you saw it's not hard to take the rotor off. Take the rotor off and put a couple of drops of oil on the, most of the time it's a bearing, in this case it's a bushing, that's fine. Pull your main gear out, which we can't do here because the frozen handle is stuck inside the gear. Put a couple of, a little bit of lubrication, blue grease onto the pinion gear, and a little bit of grease onto the back end of the main drive, and it'll last you a long time. The problem that we're seeing here, you can see it, it's even with all of the bad maintenance, the main gear and the pinion gear are still turning, which is the core issue, but not turning easy enough that you would be able to fish that, and not being able to lubricate it because we've got a frozen gear there. So this is what happens when you don't take care of reels. And again, it's a simple thing, once or twice a year, keeping it sprayed down after your fishing trip, opening up the reel once or twice a year to put some fresh grease and oils in there will keep that reel fishing for a long time. In this case, this reel isn't going fishing again. It's on my Hall of Shame. I don't know where it's been, like that car out there in the field, but I know where it's going, and it's going into a parts basket here, even though I don't believe there's anything there that's worth salvaging. Okay, so lessons learned. My $3 tuition into why reels fail. So I hope that that's been valuable to you, lessons learned to help you avoid them going forward. And if you've enjoyed the video, please like it on YouTube. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Again, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for viewing.